posted it into all the right places. Here we are. It is a Monday. It is the new slot for the BetaSaaSer Autograder sort of talk about the future of the universe slot, and we're here, and we have Richard and Rose. And did you guys have any particular hot button items that you wanted to chat about today?
I don't have hot button stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have I have a little reporting that I can do on using the Sinatra, and I also, if there was time, I wanted to ask greater logistics. I might have mentioned them in the past for improving the auto graders or doing an alternative auto grader.
Okay.
Yeah,
Rose,
I just have a quick question about the Code Academy. Has anyone seen any movement in that? I don't know if you saw my post, but my students, most of them took it earlier than Richard's, and then I had some late ads who took it later. And the early students, no problems, everything worked. Later students, everything was, you know, total mishap. And so it sounds like whatever happened within that period of time, and I wondered if they pushed through a change, and maybe they've gotten. I told all my students, if you're affected by this, give them feedback, make sure they know that things are not working as they should.
Where did you post that feedback, Rose?
Oh, geez. It was basically the week that you brought it up, and we hadn't had any problems. Then
was it in Slack?
Yeah, it should be somewhere in Slack that those issues suddenly appeared for the new students. Yeah, and it was bad. It was really bad.
But so when you say you put the thing in Slack, that there wasn't any more information than you've given us today.
No, I just wanted to reinforce what Richard had said, that there's something wrong.
You had other students encounter that similar problem.
Yeah, and I wanted to pinpoint the time frame.
Right.
I wanted to pinpoint the time frame, that it was fine earlier, but it wasn't afterwards.
Yes.
Okay, and the fine, right? Because my thing, there was one guy that was just saying, you know, he had to keep, you know, it just wasn't taking his answer, and he this and that. And the problem is, when I only hear it from one or two, from a couple of students, I'm assuming, you know, it may be more them and their lack of patience. Because like one guy was saying, oh, I keep trying it over and over, and finally I had to sort of fail it out to move on or something. And it's not clear to me that whether he ever refreshed the page. And then, oh, this right. I remember in our last meeting we tried it, and we did get to replicate it. Okay.
We certainly got stuck, and I generated a request. What I guess I don't have necessarily offhand, unless I can find this. It was what was the what was the fresh account that I used, if any, to submit that issue on. And I don't know that I have, but I certainly haven't. I don't appear to have received any updates. You know, like, I mean, of course, maybe I had to log in to see that. I haven't had any. I don't think I've had anything on that. It looks like I might have used. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the account that I created. Let's see if, because I think what was interesting was that, you know, there was good support in the interface to report issues, but yeah. Okay, but so did you get any more detailed description from your students, Rose, that it was just like, oh, we got stuck and it wouldn't work, or like that was as much detail as you got?
That was, yeah. It would hang up. It wouldn't respond. They'd enter a response, and it was like grading it wrong no matter what. And the later ones just
the problem
really
with
couldn't
these
get
kinds
anywhere.
of things is that the next time we need them, things will be different. So, and probably resolved, but
well, yeah,
I would think so.
I mean, I've from here, I mean, having filed that bug report, I've had no updates from them about it, which is kind of a bit ridiculous, really. I mean, they obviously had some sorts of issues. I mean, this was the place here where we were kind of getting stuck. We could just have a quick look at that. Isn't it, like even here, it's kind of being strangely. I can't even open. That's the instructions. Oh, I have to scroll down. Sorry, right there. I couldn't in this new account that I created. I couldn't get past this point last time. No, I mean it's frustrating. I mean, let's have a look there. We run. Well, this time I can. This time I can. I don't know if
maybe they secretly fixed it. Didn't let you know.
Let me know. I don't know if they have one of these places where, they don't have a state. Doesn't look like they've got a status like thing that would tell us if they were having issues. And I think that the part of the issue with this is that it's quite a there's the entire site, and then they've got the basically the coding environment, and then there's all of the interaction with that and the browsers, and it may have been that the change wasn't in code accounting per se, but it was a new browser release that some students got, and then that impacted it. So I don't know what more we can say about that apart from, yes, it would be nice to have some kind of more reliable, all of these things. We would love to have environments in which students were only encountering the issues that we hoped that they would encounter, rather than random other stuff from the universe to do with browser compatibility.
Or else, I mean, the bigger problem with this, in my mind, is that it's sort of intermittent.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, even if there's a problem, we can just say, okay, this is the thing, and some way to deal with it. But because it's very intermittent, it's hard to know what to do. So the main issue is that we have a little bit of corroboration. The fact that you're seeing it, the fact that Rose and some of her students are seeing it, means that I won't. I'm a little bit lighter touch to some of the students that complain on my side.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the only
over and done with.
Right. I would say the only positive thing about this sort of thing is just to point out to students that this is the kind of stuff they'll have to deal with when they're out in the working world.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I think you always have to put it in that framework.
Yeah.
Right. But right, but that was probably little solace to you, Rose, to say, oh well, sometimes there are bugs in software in the world when you had your issue.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I guess
some of that suffering from the consequences.
Well,
yeah.
And you can say to the students, like, okay, yeah, it didn't work. That's why we want you to be the best engineer you can to prevent these kind of problems in future.
That's my point. That's my point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Because otherwise, you have to deal with it.
Otherwise, you'll be the person who's. I mean, of course, there's a bigger picture there that I think, even with the best intentions, like there's just the web that is such a big complex system. It's anyway. So I think that's Rose's issue there. Should we go? You wanted to mention the Sinatra assignment, Richard?
Yeah, I would say I signed it.
Is that the first time, the first year you've assigned it?
It's the first time I signed it in its rightful position.
Okay.
Before Rails as a mandatory assignment. I signed it for the first time last year as an optional assignment at the end. And it worked more smoothly then because people understood stuff. My issue, which is only my issue, is that is the Git stuff. I really, it talks about having familiarity and comfortableness with Git. And I think in terms of improvements, I started making some changes, and I made some changes. That usual thing is I'm doing stuff in a rush, doing some that are just for me because we upgraded things to make more compatible with the Ruby 2.4.0. So I had people fork out of my repo, and we were making some quick changes, and I'm going to try and push sort of send them back as pull requests before we lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing major. And the other but associated with that is that the Git, where you had to commit and add and all that, it was in the text is like, oh yeah, put these under version control. But someone who was brand new and didn't get the whole Git tutorial kind of stuff, which is where I was in my course. I hadn't really done that with students. I had to be a little bit more explicit. A lot of issues with directories. If people don't put things in the aren't in the right directory, there's a lot of.
Yep.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
one thing I would like to see in the Sinatra assignment is when they refer to the, like forking and cloning and all this other stuff, just some reference to maybe the appendix in the text where that stuff is discussed.
Right.
Because I had students in that particular assignment get a little lost because they didn't know how to do certain things. And, they should have, but when there's nothing in the text of the assignment, it sort of stopped the show for a few of them. Not a big deal. I mean, I told them how to do it, but it would be nice to just have a reference.
Right. And I do what I do is I take advantage of my in-class time to have people start working through it so we can help them with exactly these issues. And so forth. So my real issue with, or my real comment about the hang person was I found Sam's walkthrough very valuable because of the annotations, like what you said about the auto test and the stream of errors that are produced.
Right.
The confusion when tests are pending or not pending, and they're pending and they still fail, and and so that
was a good point.
So I've no comment other than that it was helpful and wondering, if this is all back burner stuff, or if Armando is sympathetic with it, or et cetera, et cetera.
I'm in total agreement here. By the way, one of the things that we worked through in class is that when students were getting these tests that were failing, but they were still pending, which is very confusing.
Right.
I had them put an equal, begin, equal, end around that context or test or whatever, so they could ignore it.
Right.
But they were very confused until they were directed to do that.
Yeah, I believe I also cover that in the walkthrough, but yes, that's
yes.
Extremely confusing.
So the walkthrough was very helpful.
Oh, good. Then mission accomplished with the walkthrough. In as much as having a walkthrough, I guess, and particularly the written walkthrough, more helpful than the previous video walkthroughs.
Yeah, I think so, because you could look things up.
You can dip in and out. You can do file search on the thing. I mean, you remember I did do the previous year. I did like the video walkthrough.
Which was also very helpful. It was also very helpful, but without time markers. At this point, it's like, great to view the whole thing.
Yeah, if you're going to sit down and make an hour to watch it all, that's great. But if you're just trying to dip in and out.
Right.
The video totally. Which is what I expected. Go on, Richard.
Where are the videos linked?
They are also in the repos. So so if we look at, and the videos, of course, are further out of date than the walkthroughs, which are of course also out of date. I mean, only by 2 months, but still the entire universe has changed since then. So but if we go to SAS book, and for example, Homework Sinatra SAS book, hang person, if we go, if we stick CI on the end of that, then we should see here. Oh gosh, it used to be I was sticking the video links in there. Maybe I didn't do one for the Sinatra. So the walkthroughs are all obviously there in the root of that one. Let me go to Rails. I had thought that I was putting all of the video things. No, right. I've lost them. Oh well.
Well, in your mind, you put them there,
I guess it might have been also though that it was the was the previous assignments.
Oh.
We had that complete refactoring of everything, and you know, they kind of changed and put HW at the beginning of everything. It might have been now that many years ago. If we look at, we haven't got a calisthenics CI here.
Right.
We've got, and we don't have those.
By the way, we're
figured
doing
not like officially.
Oh, I think I remember now where it was. It was in that we had at one point we were using. Oh gosh.
Oh, the instructor resource. Folder. Yeah.
Right. We had the instructor community resources. There we go.
Yeah.
And then so video walkthroughs.
Okay.
This is
right.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, maybe I should put them.
Well, here's the deal.
John.
Happened is you know, because I hadn't looked at them in a while, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna ask, but I feel bad for, you know, you're doing all the work and just like asking this basic stuff I should know. So now I feel a little bit sort of better that you also because I figured, oh, I'll find the videos rather than asking. I'll find the videos when I look at the repo, and I got what I needed with the text walkthrough, but I sort of did look around and poke around, and I did not see the videos, and I'm like, I was almost ashamed to ask.
Well, you know, in Slack, it's but yeah, I think we can see there. I mean, even, I mean, we evolve, don't we, through these different things. Clearly, what we want is a consolidation there of the videos in the same place as the walkthroughs, and it makes sense for them to be in the place where the solution is for that assignment. So, you know, particularly since we're not, it's a beautiful idea in some ways to have like, let's put agenda items and issues in GitHub, but it's, I don't know, the freeform text is so much. So let's put video walkthroughs with text walkthroughs. Yeah.
But by the way, I'm starting Rails intro today.
Yes. Oh yeah.
We'll be working on that.
Cool. Good show.
Yeah, and I'm giving a test, and I'll be starting the Rails, what I call the Rails tutorial, which is that first chapter.
Okay.
Sort of that kind of walkthrough.
Yeah.
But, and I would have asked about the videos if I got what I needed in the text.
Yeah. No, you had. I think that, I mean, the videos are going to be increasingly. They're also, I mean, part of the reason to switch to text is because the videos are more difficult to maintain. Like in principle, having created the text walkthrough, the second time around shouldn't be quite so much. Whereas the second time around with the video, it has to be re-recorded from scratch. So we'll see.
Now, I don't know if do you have any recollection of the hang person video, because I'm thinking I may want to just look through it just as an alternative before my classes this week, unless you tell me like it's really like older.
I've got it here with the date that I recorded it, apparently just over a year ago.
Okay.
So it was June.
Well, I'll take a look at it. I mean, if I have the time, that's my plan, unless you want to dissuade me, and I don't see you dissuade me. Wow, you look so much younger.
Well, you know, it's aged me. Making the text walkthrough has taken years off me. I mean, I'll put years on me or something. I don't know what it is. But
okay.
Yeah. To go, you had you had asked previously a question about as you were saying, you know, these issues about this is pending failing tests. The issues mentioned in the walkthrough, and was Armando on those things? And the answer is I don't know. Interestingly, you know, Armando is, in my discussions with him now, he's got some TAs, and they're assigned to making it so that in principle students can submit autograder assignments to be graded by the autograder via just putting them on GitHub. So I think that there's been a shift from in the past where Armando felt very strongly about, you know, these kind of I don't know, the whole homework has to be submitted. I think he is, perhaps like the rest of us, realized that we can't keep the solution secret. Let's, you know, if we're comparing secret solutions, secret, you know, it's secret solutions, secret submissions by the student versus visibility of the submission to the instructor, then actually, which is more important? And having what the student has submitted visible to the instructor or TA is the higher goal. And so there has been a shift there, and how long it will take to get that functionality in place is another matter, but it's going that way. Yeah, I don't know about this. Yeah, I think there are various confusing things which I'm putting down into the walkthroughs, and we'll see. But that hasn't come up in my discussions with Amanda yet.
Well, the reason it's a little bit higher of higher importance is because this whole purpose, or one of the big purposes of this, is a scaffolding. So anything in it that adds sort of confusion is basically cross purposes.
Totally
as
agree.
Opposed to a later assignment where it's like, okay, they can struggle and figure that out, and it's not as big a deal.
Yes, and it's I mean, it's absolutely, and it's the same. I think we suffer from it's the difficulty, and this is no criticism of Armando, because I think we all do it, and we all do it with our assignments, and we all do it in life. Is that there are things that we understand well, and so when we construct something for others to work with, the things that we might find easy, such as the Git or the managing the RSpec, it's so difficult, I think, to estimate properly how hard the novice will find those things and how confusing they'll be. And I think when we combine that with unexpected things, that it wasn't an omission on the instructor's part that they didn't realize that this would be quite so complicated. It's just that the software under the hood changed, and suddenly a completely new swathe of error messages that the original instructor never encountered in any version come up as well. And the combination of those two things can end up meaning that the actual concept that we wanted the student to internalize is just totally lost in the noise from all of the assumptions and unexpected encounters, and that sort of obviously
And in this case, I think there's some clear questions that may not have clear answers. Is whether the pending versus skip, whatever, what is the right thing, and is it just a lack of sort of time for people to fix that, or is it unclear what we if and what we should be changing? And similarly with the auto test and the verbosity of the output, that may not have been realized first off, but I'm just wondering, is that acknowledged as a problem, or there's?
I would say that if it's been acknowledged, I'm not aware of it being acknowledged. I've kind of mentioned it tangentially. It's not on the Berkeley side's radar as far as I know. But
maybe it's combined with now I'm trying to remember. Maybe it's combined with the pending, because if pending is not supposed to give us any output, or if we get no output from the pending, then the verbosity is much less of an issue, right?
I mean, but I think that it's still an issue with the pending, because I think that's the big thing here that's going on is we've got, for example, in this Sinatra app, we've got this scaffolding of lots and lots of tests, which the developer who was creating an app would never encounter that huge range of tests that needed to be pending. Like, that's kind of like a smell in and of itself. If you've got 500 pending, or even 25, tests, that's like
right. But in some sense, I mean, imagine a scenario like what we have, where someone creates, like, for some reason there's a whole bunch of tests created. Maybe someone is re-implementing a system or whatever.
Right.
And so they really want these tests to be pending, like to be there in the background and not show up. I thought that's what pending was for, but it's not acting that way now.
It is, but I mean, but there's two things there. One thing is that the pending, it's supposed to show up just in a different color, and it does. But the issue is often that the student is working with a relatively small real estate of screen, and they are not as confident scrolling back to find the thing that's happened. So the RSpec's working exactly as intended. And for me as a relatively confident developer, I can, with 25 pending tests, I can easily find and overcome that issue. There's a second thing, which is that part of the functionality for, like, this has been added to RSpec, is that pending tests are supposed not to pass, right? Because this is about the whole test-driven development. If your pending test is passing, then that's actually flagging a problem. But we're in this pedagogical situation where we have created all of the tests, and some of them might pass due to the flow that you take through creating all the different things. And part of the problem is that the pedagogical change that we've met is not matched by the tool, if that makes sense.
Okay, does Skip or another thing other than pending do what we need better?
Maybe so. I mean, from my point of view, it's somewhat strange that we're taking this approach at all. I think the approach that that we have in the class and so on, where we're kind of learning RSpec by osmosis, is kind of extraordinarily confusing, it seems to me. Like, what we're saying is, we're teaching you about Ruby, right? And so now you're going to do some Ruby intro, some Ruby calisthenics, but hey, there's this like strange, weird RSpec thing that you have no idea that's being talked about. It's kind of a thing. And you're going to kind of encounter this by bumping into it and occasionally running these other, like the way the boot camps do it, right, is they explicitly teach RSpec, right? And this is something that I have talked at length with Armando about. And I think what he's looking towards is try and get a specific RSpec assignment that kind of hits this is what the RSpec is for. Because we talked about this in the bigger cycle, right, is that they basically go through the students, Ruby intro, they see there's some RSpec, maybe most of them don't do Ruby calisthenics. Then there's like, in Sinatra, they see there's some RSpec. Then they're doing like Rails, okay, and there's no RSpec, it's just they like asked to build this thing. Then they're doing BDD Cucumber, and they're doing BDD with Cucumber and learning that, and they have to kind of like use some strange RSpec syntax somewhere in the steps, but they're not sure, and that's one of the most confusing things. And then finally they're on this acceptance test unit test cycle, and that's the first time that they're ever being asked to write RSpec tests. And it's just, I mean, I think I can see the intent through the whole thing, but I think that the failure to address RSpec up front is kind of a fundamental issue. And I think, you know, with unlimited funds, I would certainly be advocating for a structure that was much more like what the boot camps do, where you don't try and introduce this by osmosis as a kind of an afterthought. You do it up front as the main thing. I mean, I think that the other thing though is the simpler solution to the pending issue is not to use autotest. And you just then you run the individual test that you need, and you focus on that, and the output is tightly constrained.
Yeah, I remember that.
You can the difficulty there, and I haven't explicitly spoken with Armando about that, but is that there's an argument that says, well, it's important to have autotest running because you want to know when a change that you've made in one place has broken something somewhere else. But I think I come down on the side of that's too complex a thing to expect as, you know, probably certainly the weaker students to be able to handle. Like, it's enough for them to be like, I'm focusing on this one test and trying to make it pass, and for them to be like sort of splurted some other information about how that's had a knock-on effect when they're not requesting that information is probably too much for the experience.
I think they need to evolve to that.
Right.
I'm in agreement.
Go on.
I'm just saying I'm in agreement with you. They need to evolve to that. That it's not something that they're going to get right off the bat, and giving them too much is confusing rather than focusing on the basics right away and then building on that.
Yeah. So Armando I think he's working on, there are new assignments. He was also, he's done a version of like he posted in Slack recently. There's a couple of different assignments. There's like a version of the Rails intro that has tests around it or something as an optional assignment. And he's talking about an RSpec and a JavaScript assignment. Yeah, we will see. We will see.
Yeah, by the way, one of the reasons that I have my students submit everything to Blackboard also is because we can then look over their actual submission rather than just trust the autograder.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, see what they did. Also, I noticed we're still using Hangouts. I thought we weren't going to be able to use Hangouts.
Well, we still continue to be able to use the Hangouts. The Hangouts don't have like certain automated functionality. It's the Hangout API that was cut off. And we were experimenting with these things called Jitsies, which do have an API. Recently, the Jitsies are they've been like, because we were on a shared server, they've been a little bit less reliable. And also Hangouts, we found they've got we're in a special low latency Hangout, and so for the time being, I've switched back to Hangouts to use this new low latency feature, which I can set up, and that maximizes like communication. What we're looking at inside is hosting our own Jitsies to see what the performance is like, and that's sort of a separate thing. So we'll be using, we'll be using these low latency Hangouts until we can guarantee the Jitsies are good performance-wise.
Okay. Oh, we've been using some Jitsies, and we found that it's very difficult to see the screen.
Yeah.
It's all blurry. It's all low resolution. We don't know what to do.
Yeah. The problem is that the Jitsies are shared hosting, so you're sharing the bandwidth for screen sharing with the rest of the world. We're looking at setting up our own ones to do that. I'll let you know how that goes. Richard's saying we are due to end very shortly. Students.
1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, another 2 minutes. You had I think the last.
Right. Because I have other things to say, but I just want to touch on the auto grader thing.
Yeah, go on.
What if Armando is talking about moving the auto graders out of edX, I have some people in a project-oriented course that I got intrigued in trying to replicate that like fantastic auto grader that I did with one of my students helped the first year that we taught the course, which gave me all the functionality that I wanted.
Sure.
And what I was going to have them do was like sort of jump into one of these meetings to find out, okay, are there hooks in Open edX and all this other stuff to be able to
I'll just stop you there. Armando's not talking about taking the grading out of edX at the moment. He's talking about students being able to take a link to their repository and submit that to edX and have the grader grade that rather than grade like a set of files submitted.
Right, which is okay, which means that it's because that and that's what I'm trying to understand about how and in what way to direct my students, and somehow we should link up these efforts in some way, at least to know.
It's a nice idea. I mean, I've got these 2 students from Armando who are now in the Agile Ventures Slack, and they're in the Autograders channel. I mean, I think it's fantastic having lots of enthusiastic students involved in projects at the same time. Coordinating them so that they can actually work together sometimes sucks up all the time that would be used to actually get things done. I mean, by all means, have them join Agile Ventures. There's the there's the Autograders channel where I'm sort of very slowly coordinating with the Berkeley students. I'd love to share the information and make it happen, but let's not necessarily. Yeah, let's be cautious about. It's you know what I'm saying?
It could even be right. I understand what you're saying, but it could even be just sharing some, if they have any documents. Even they don't even have to interact. Let's see what other people are doing, and it might. If something gels or it doesn't, either way.
Let's get them into the channel. That's good. Nice to have the conversation.
Okay.
Cool beans. Richard, you were saying in the chat that some students don't know how to test their own code manually, and automatic testing gets in the way. I think that's often a challenge. We're up on our time there. My 2 minor items were I'm running the AV102 teacher assistant training course, and that's going. I think I need to re-record some videos for that. The MOOC is starting in about 6 weeks or less again, and I'll try and get through on more of the walkthroughs. But yeah, shall we wrap up there, and we'll have more time next week because we'll start at the right time.
Sure. I've got one quick question for Richard. Richard, do you need to go over the Sinatra stuff, because I can spend some time with you?
I will let you know. I think I'm good. I just wanted to see where the resources were.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll just stragglers this week.
Okay. I think one of the big issues is that valid, invalid, or true, false means valid or invalid guess rather than correct or incorrect guess.
Right.
That's
I realized all that. Yes. Those were good things to be able to help students.
Fine. All right.
Cool beans. All right. Well, I'll stop the recording